There was just so much drama in this book, like infidelity, unaliving, drama. If those are your things, you will love this. Hey guys, welcome back to Francesca's Books. My name is Francesca, these are my books, and here we talk all things thriller books. I honestly think this is the most exciting video that I've ever made. Like, forget my top 10 of all time. Like, this is it. We're talking Freida McFadden. I have honestly been wanting to do this video for like a year. Like, I've been trying to get through Freida's backlist for a good 12 months now because I have read 19 of her books. So I will caveat this by saying this is just her psychological thrillers, and it does not include the novella The Gift, and it doesn't include her like women's fiction. So I think she has around 22 or 23 books complete total, but in terms of her psychological thrillers, that is what we're going to be talking about today. So because you clicked on this video, you're either a Freida McFadden fan or you're looking to get into the Freida McFadden world, and I think a lot of that as well will probably come from people who are trying to go into the thriller genre because Freida's books are notoriously easy to read. So if you've never heard of her and you've just clicked on this video randomly, she is most famous for her Housemaid series, which I will just pop here, and also probably Never Lie. These books are extremely popular on BookTok, and in this video you'll find out if they deserve the hype. So I'm going to go from least favourite to most favourite. I'm going to have the cover here as well as the star rating and like the ranking position. I will caveat by saying the first 5 or so I actually didn't like, and then we kind of go into this middle portion where they were just kind of okay and I enjoyed them, but I wouldn't like recommend them to everyone. And then we have like my top 5, which I absolutely loved, and I gave 4.5s and 5s. So without further ado, a little sip of my coffee and we'll get going. So coming in dead last at number 19 is The Co-Worker. This is actually one of Freida's more recent releases, which is why it surprises me it ranks dead last on this list, but I just could not stand this book. If you've read it, you will know exactly why. This follows Dawn, who works in an office. She is super socially awkward, and then there's Natalie, who's like the it girl of the office, and when Natalie goes missing, everyone just immediately suspects Dawn. I'm gonna tell you now, this isn't even a spoiler, Dawn says the word turtles 206 times throughout this 350-page book. I literally searched it in my Kindle because I had to know, and if you read it, you will understand the frustration. I did just not get on with this book at all. Next up at number 18 is Freida McFadden's longest book. This is like 550 pages and it is Suicide Med. This book was literally just absolutely bizarre. So it follows 5 medical students and a professor, and they go to this like college that's nicknamed Suicide Med because there's been loads of like unalivings and blah blah blah. I mean, it's not looking great for them before all of this starts, but then you go into it and each section is told from a different one of those characters' point of view. So instead of them being intertwined, you kind of just get one point of view after another, which could work for some people. I think some people would really like this book. It just didn't work for me. And there's one particular point of view, if you know, you know, that was just absolutely crazy, not in a good way. I also don't recommend this book, and I gave it a 2.5. Next up is another extremely bizarre concept, and I think this ranks quite low on most people's Freida McFadden sort of tier list. So number 17 is The Surrogate Mother. This follows Abby, who wants a baby, but she can't have one for whatever health reasons, and she decides the best way to go with this is to ask her secretary, like her assistant at work, to carry the baby for her. Abby's husband is literally like, are you insane? But she does end up getting him on board, and yeah, it's just kind of exactly what you think now is probably going to happen happens, and that's it, that's the whole book. I also gave this a 2.5. I mean, it's a quick fun read. I read all of these really quickly, so it feels harsh giving them like lower ratings, but I mean the actual book itself. Then coming in at number 16, the last book that's not at least a 3-star is Brain Damage. This was actually the last book that I read in this saga, and it's the one that I always seemed least drawn to, and it kind of makes sense because that it's ranked low in this list. It follows a dermatologist who gets shot, and she's in this like rehab facility, and it's more her journey about the rehab as opposed to anything else in the entire book. There is literally no plot twist in this. It was still quite easy to read, but there was no twists whatsoever. Like exactly what you thought was going to happen happened. I guess similar to The Surrogate Mother. And I feel like that's quite out of character for Freida, and then I looked and this was like one of the first books she wrote, so that kind of makes sense. The only slightly redeeming factor and why it makes number 16 not 19 is that the ending was really satisfying, and I did have a little smile. So coming in at number 15, and with a shiny 3-star this time, is The Locked Door. So this is told from 2 points of view, and it follows a woman named Nora when she was 11 years old and her father was unaliving people in the basement, and then it follows Nora at 30 years old trying to deal with the fallout of that. Now Nora's got her life kind of in control and she's a surgeon, and then the unaliving start happening again, so you can imagine who the police point the finger at. The first 20% of this book contained everything that you would possibly need to read about it, and then the last 10% was brilliant, but whatever was happening in that middle 70%, I honestly have no clue. It was like 20% good, 70% filler and then 10% for a plot twist. Like, it's just quite basic, to be honest. It was just quite basic. So since Freida is a US author, only some of her books are actually even published in the UK. Obviously you can get them on Kindle, but they've recently decided to publish like 5 or 6 of her books, and this is actually one of them, and it's in the works at the moment. So I'm guessing that people are starting to pick it up, but I imagine it's probably going to get a similar response. So now we enter the portion where they were good, but just not amazing. So we're kind of starting to like them now, okay? So we're up to number 14, and that is The Ex. So this follows a guy called Joel, and he breaks up with his girlfriend at the beginning of the book, and then he meets this woman called Cassie, and everything just goes to shit. To be honest, I can't really remember much more than that about the book, apart from one of the main characters was called Francesca. So maybe that's why it's subconsciously ranked higher on this list, I don't know. I do remember finishing it and being like, yeah, that was good, but I did actually like this book. I gave it a 3. It was better than Freida's other books in the sense of like it was a bit lighter, and I think I liked that. And there was also a big opening a bookshop plot, which I really liked as well. Next, unlucky for some, number 13, we are moving up to a 3.5, and that is Do You Remember? So this follows a woman who loses her memory and then wakes up every day like having no clue where she is. She's like lost the whole last 7 years of her life and just thinks she's where she was 7 years ago every day when she wakes up. Every day she comes to the same conclusion, like this is just what it is, like I'm just gonna have to enjoy my day, until she starts getting notes that are like, don't trust your husband. I feel like you were really rooting for our main character in this. Like, obviously from the reader's point of view, you're gonna get several of her days before things start happening. And I think you are there kind of feeling a bit sorry for her, but really like rooting for her to find out what is going on. Which is obviously gonna be really, really hard when as soon as she goes to sleep, she forgets. This had the same vibes as Before I Go to Sleep, if you've ever read that, but this was like easier to read. It was definitely more of like a Freida take on things. Oh, yay. A physical one next. Coming in at number 12 is The Teacher, which is one of Freida's most recent releases. I think this came out like 6 months ago, so this was a 2023 release. Oh, 2024. My bad. Did this just come out? Yeah, I think it did. So this follows husband and wife teachers and student Addie, who has been accused of being in a student-teacher relationship. It follows all 3 of their points of view to understand what's going on. I did like this book. I think I did. I think it got so many mixed like reviews on TikTok and Instagram and obviously on booktube, but I think I did like it. I still did only give it a 3.5, but I feel like you could tell this was one of Freida's more recent books because the characters were so much more like developed and well-rounded than some of her earlier stuff. And now I get into territory where like I actually didn't really guess the twist, like I wasn't sure where it was going, and because of that I really did enjoy it. I did only give it a 3.5, but I think we're getting there now in terms of quality. Next up at number 11, I gave a 3.75 to The Perfect Son. So in this one, a high school student goes missing and Erica's teenage son Liam is the last person to see her alive. I actually listened to this one on audio, believe it or not. I'm not really normally an audiobook lover, but I think this did read quite well on audio. I think that might be part of the reason why I did rate it so highly. It's also definitely one of the shortest books she's written. I think it was only about 260, 270 pages, not long at all. I feel like I would have enjoyed this a lot more if there wasn't like a weird mother and son relationship. Like the mum at the start of the book literally is like, my son's my favourite, I don't really rate my daughter. I just couldn't really get on board with that after hearing that from our female main character. I was just like, you're just a bit shit, aren't you? And I also did guess the twist in this as well. So I think the only reason it's like a mid-level in the Freida McFadden ranking is because it was a very quick read and just one of those that you don't put down until you finished it. So coming in at number 10, all of these books now are 4-star or above, so I did enjoy them all, just obviously some more than others. So The Inmate follows a prison nurse who is very familiar with one of the inmates. That's all I can kind of tell you about this book, to be honest. If I told you any more, it would pretty much ruin the whole plot. But I did like this, just didn't love it. I liked it, didn't love it. I think overall The Inmate was quite predictable, but the twists were good nevertheless. Coming in at number 9 is The Wife Upstairs. So this follows Victoria, who's paralysed, and she gets this nurse Sylvie who comes in to look after her, and Sylvie quickly realises that Victoria's not half as paralysed as she's letting on. It's a similar concept as Verity by Colleen Hoover, if you have read that, but there is some major differences. I think that Freida McFadden gets a lot of hate for plagiarising Verity, but although the idea is similar, the books are executed quite differently. I think if I'd have read this before any other like similar paralysed carer style book, I would have been absolutely gobsmacked, rated it a 5-star and never shut up about it. But I think because I had seen the concept being done before, it just wasn't as shocking. Do you know what I mean? Next up at number 8 is brand new release The Housemaid is Watching, which comes out in June 2024. So it's hard to tell you about the concept of this without telling you about the first 2 books, which rank higher in this list. So all I will say is it follows Millie's adventures carrying on from the first 2 books. So I gave it a 4. It was my least favourite out of the 3 housemaid books, but that doesn't mean it wasn't good. I think it's just the concept is now a little bit done. I feel like Freida's pushed the housemaid series as far as she can go. I have no doubt that there will be a 4th book in this series because of how popular they are, but I think it's probably best that she stops there, in my opinion. Coming in at number 7 is Want to Know a Secret, which I also gave 4 stars. So if I'm being completely honest, not a lot happens plot-wise in this book. Like, obviously it does and it's good, but I think the main reason I really like it is the vibes. It's set in a really affluent neighborhood and there's just some like really rich housewife type characters, which I just really liked. And one of their sons goes missing out of the backyard, like really early on, and it's kind of just unraveling off the back of that. And also one of our female main characters has a YouTube channel and she bakes on it. So that is like a large part of the plot, and that's probably another reason why I enjoyed this so much, because it's close to home. There was just so much drama in this book, like infidelity, unaliving, drama. If those are your things, you will love this. Coming in at number 6 is The Housemaid's Secret. So I also rated this 4 star, the same as The Housemaid is Watching, but I think I just preferred this more because the timeline was closer to the first book. So in the 3rd book, you're set like a lot further down the line. This was like a year later, I believe. So these aren't really spoilers anymore in terms of what happened in the first book. So Millie is a caretaker / housemaid, and she's looking after a really wealthy family on the Upper West Side, I want to say, called the Garricks. And she notices that the wife of the family just like never comes out of her bedroom, and she's like, PTSD, so tries to understand what's going on. This is a really fast-paced read. I loved the romantic subplot in this. That is half the reason it ranks so highly, and yeah, I would definitely recommend this book. So now we're in our top 5. Woo! These are the good ones, guys. So if you're still here at this point in the video, congratulations, you are now going to get some great book recommendations. So coming in at number 5 is Ward D. So this is not the best literary masterpiece that you're ever going to read. I'm going to caveat by saying that firstly. However, it was great. I really enjoyed it. The vibes were so good. So it follows a medical student who has to spend a night in a locked psychiatric facility as part of her like studies and training and whatever. But when she gets the call that she has to stay the night in this specific psychiatric facility, she is literally like, no, can't do it, literally can't do it. So the book is kind of trying to find out why she was so opposed to being in this specific facility and just understanding like what's going on there. And as you can imagine, the way Freida writes books, absolute chaos goes down in this one night period. The book is set just over one like 12-hour period, and shit hits the fan. I gave this a 4.5 and would definitely recommend it. Then out of the next 4 books, all which I have physical copies for, it was actually really hard to put these in order. I did actually change this ranking order a few times and I'm still not 100%. So I would recommend all 4 of these books wholeheartedly. I gave them all 5 stars, so do with that what you will. But coming in at number 4 is One by One. So this book was so good, partially because it was exactly what I needed at the time. It's literally 270 something pages, and it was just the best slump breaker ever. It follows 6 friends who set off in a minivan on like a really exciting road trip, and then they hit a snag and all their tires are punctured like somewhere down like this random dirt road. They decide to like try and hike to the nearest motel or hotel or whatever, but it's like, you know, a mile or 2 away. So they start going missing one by one. This has locked room vibes, even though of course like there is some outside influence. Our 6 main characters are very much like the main center of this plot. So while I did give this 5 star, it was nothing like absolutely mind-blowing. It was just a great thriller book. I was like, I finished it and I was like, without adding like more depth to these characters, which would pretty much be virtually impossible in a book this length, like I can't really change anything about it. It shocked me, I didn't guess the twist, and I read it super quick. I feel like such a fake because I often say this is like in my top favourite books of all time, but it actually is going to come in 3rd, and that is never lie. So this follows a married couple who get trapped in a potential house of their dreams that they've been to view because of a snowstorm. The estate agent literally can't even get down the dirt road to see them, so they are trapped overnight, and then all sorts of weird stuff starts happening. They have bitten off way more than they could possibly chew in this book. They have to stay there, they don't really have a choice, so in the night, paintings start moving, they find like weird dry food stores. It's all just super sus, and I feel like you wouldn't really be able to guess where this is going. It's one of those like magical freedom moments where you're like, that's how it ties together. I gave this 5 star, I would definitely recommend it, and if you have a bad word to say about this, just keep it to yourself. Next up is, in my opinion, the most underrated Freida McFadden book of all time, and it is Do Not Disturb. So this follows our main character, and it opens with her unaliving her husband, slay, and she gets on the road, she decides to run away, she thinks that's the best course of action, and then a snowstorm hits, similar as Never Lie, maybe Freida's got a pattern there, and she has to reside in this really dodgy looking motel at the side of the road. Like, she literally has no choice. So the book then becomes about whether she can literally even survive the night in this book. I mean, one of my favourite parts is that there is a point of view change that you don't expect, and I won't tell you roughly what percent because that would spoil it, but I was just getting to the point where I was like, oh, this is kind of like dragging a little bit now, and then bam, it changed point of view, and I was like, it was perfect timing. So I would say this is a perfectly paced book. I gave this 5 star at the time, and I still wouldn't take it back. I absolutely loved it, and I recommend this to people who've read some of other Freida's most popular books and just want something now a little bit different. So my favourite Freida book of all time is pretty easy to guess based on the fact that I've been talking about it pretty much throughout the whole video, but it is The Housemaid. When I was planning this video and I was trying to rank them before I came on camera, because that would have been chaos if I'd have tried to do it while talking to you, I thought, I'm not sure how this couldn't be number 1, because 1, it was the first Freida book I read and loved. It got me into her reading. It's had 2 spin-offs, and not only that, it was just really, really good. Like, it was just really good. This deserves all the hype that it gets. It really does. So we have our female main character, Millie. She starts the book as an ex-con who goes to work as a housemaid because she can't really get another job. And when she's there, all sorts of weird things start happening. She has a relationship with the mum and the dad, and also with the daughter of the family. There's also a gardener character that's kind of involved who doesn't speak a lot of English, and things just tie together really nicely in this book. And I think our FMC Millie is so badass that I just root for her throughout all 3 books, and mainly this one. And I think this probably wasn't intended to be a series like when Freida wrote this, and I think that's what makes it really special, because everything is tied up at the end of this book. So you could read this and then not read the second 2 and you'd be absolutely fine. Like, you wouldn't still be looking for answers in the other 2 books, if that makes sense. Wholeheartedly recommend The Housemaid as my number 1 Freida McFadden read. There we have it, guys. 19 to number 1 of all Freida McFadden's psychological thrillers, including which were my favourites, which were my least favourites, and a little bit about them all. So I really hope you got something from this ranking video, and let me know if you've read any of these, which is your favourite Freida McFadden book. I would love to chat more. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe for more, and I cannot wait to see you next time.